Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Now, Office of US Vice President J.D. Vance issued a statement announcing Vice President's visit and the second family's visit to Italy and India from April 18th to April 24th. The Vice President will discuss shared economic and geopolitical priorities with leaders in each country. In India, the Vice President will visit New Delhi, Jaipur and Agra. The Vice President will hold meetings with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and tariffs are bound to be part of these talks. This comes at a time when the tariff war between USA and China has escalated to unheard of heights. China now faces tariffs of up to 245% on import of goods into the United States of America as a result of its retaliatory actions. The White House clarified in a statement. Until now, tit-for-tat tariff exchanges had seen the U.S. levy 145% on Chinese imports, and China slapped 125% duty on American goods. And to discuss this and more on the trade war between US and China, I'm being joined by Managing Editor of Business Today, Siddharth Zarabi, to explain what's really happening between the two countries. Siddharth, thank you so much for joining me. What do you think of the 245% tariff on China? Break it down for us.
Well, that's right. It really started with that White House statement putting that number of 245% and saying China faces up to 245%. And clearly, it seems to suggest that there's been one more hike in the tariffs. That's not the case. But it is certainly the case that there are items which will now face 245% tariffs. The 245%, and think of it as slabs, is actually going to be imposed on needles and syringes. Lithium-ion batteries come in at 173%, toys at 0%, and you may want to ask, why is that? It's actually the total duties, import tariffs imposed in successive rounds. So think of it this way, the base rate, which was already existing, then pre-2025, remember Trump imposed some tariffs in his first term. Some of them continued. Joe Biden continued with some additional levies. So that's all pre-2025. Subsequent to that, we had another couple of slabs, which was steel, aluminium, as well as automobiles. So you add that. The fourth was the fentanyl tariff, 20%, that hit, for example, smartphones. So while smartphones have been exempted today, the smartphone shipments will face a 20% tax because that is pre-existing, as is called the fentanyl era. And finally, the big 2nd April bombshell that went up to 125%. So all of that put together is 245%, but not every good that is imported into the United States or can be imported from China is at that rate. However, in terms of the headline impact, it is very, very significant. There are certain categories which are exempt, but a bulk of Chinese imports to the United States is at very, very high levels of tariff now.
Right. So that's very interestingly put. So it's not a flat 245%. But there are restrictions on Boeing that have been put by China, and they've also restricted export of, like you said, rare earths to the US. What is the playbook over here in terms of retaliatory action by China?
Well, that's right. It's very clear that China is not backing away. Remember, they said a few days ago that this will be a fight to the finish. So while there's a 90-day ceasefire or a pause with the rest of the world, the US-China battle is fully underway. In conventional terms, any battle may start with a surprise attack, and then there are escalation levels. What the United States did was in some ways to nuke the entire World Trade Order as we knew it straight away. Then it took a pause, but not with China. China has been more sort of calculated and publicly calm about it. They've made very short, cryptic comments, but two clear actions, which are the latest ones, show that apart from matching the US tariffs tit for tat, China now has a game plan of hurting the United States where it thinks it will have a damaging effect. Boeing, a US company, the dominant supplier along with Airbus of aircraft all across the world, a high-tech company which faced its own set of problems due to manufacturing issues. Now China, which is one of the largest civil aviation markets in the world, will no longer take Boeing. So Boeing faces some challenges. Hopefully they'll find markets all across the world, including in India. Rare earths, remember the US leads when it comes to semiconductor technology amongst some other critical areas. So when you ban that, you are impacting the ability of US producers in this regard. So very clearly, there is an escalation matrix which both sides are following, and China, because of its dominant share and dominant position in world manufacturing and world trade, can deal and land some heavy blows on the United States.
Well, that's very, very interestingly put. The next few days are going to be very important. Siddharth Zarabi, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. Now, the World Trade Organization sharply cut its forecast for global merchandise trade from solid growth to a decline on Wednesday, saying further US tariffs and spillover effects could lead to the heaviest slump since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The WTO said it expected trade in goods to fall by 0.2% this year, down from its expectation in October of 3% expansion. It said its new estimate was based on measures in place at the start of the week. The disruption of US-China trade was expected to increase Chinese merchandise exports across all regions outside North America by between 4% and 9%. Chinese exporters to American traders all feel the pinch already.
China is looking for new territory to survive the tariff war. So its free of charge foreign language training programs for merchants now offer business Arabic courses besides practical business English. Arabic courses are a recent addition.
The course will be conducted over 20 days within 40 minutes each morning, dedicated to topics such as greetings, customer reception, price negotiation and selling goods effectively based on customer needs.
Learning Arabic is very useful for us.
Chinese manufacturers are now looking for alternative markets as the tariff war shoots through the roof.
My strategy is that because before we have like separate team that focus on U.S. markets, so we can for example, these people now move to maybe focus on other market. So just shift to other market. We can move our time, our time or our energy to other markets that can maybe like Mexico, Canada, or South America.
In America, threatened by President Donald Trump's on-again, off-again new levies have caused uncertainty in container ports. The largest container port of America, Port of Long Beach in Southern California, expects a 20% reduction in volume for the latter half of 2025 if the tariffs continue as planned.
Our concerns about reduction, I think, are going to really start being elevated as we move towards May. We already have, our staff has now recorded 17 canceled sailings from the international carriers, which means less containers coming into the complex.
Beth Bennick is no stranger to pressure. The mother and veteran runs a small business selling baby products made in China to the US market. Tariff war with China is forcing her to reinvent her business strategy.
In 2 months, when we run out of this stuff, there's nothing else to sell, which means there's no revenue coming into the business, which means I can't pay my employees, I can't pay the lease for this building, I can't pay my loans. And I have a significant amount of debt because it was a big investment and a big risk to go into Walmart and Target. It's a big step for our business, and it was a risk I was willing to take because it was the next big milestone for our company. But to get that loan, I had to leverage my house. So now if I default on that loan, I could lose my home. I have plans to move forward, and there's been a lot of interest in my products in other countries. There's babies everywhere. So right now, the only option for me is to look into global distribution.
Whether in China or across the globe in America, President Trump's tariff war with Beijing has forced all, big and small, to look for new ways to survive in trade and business. Bureau Report, India Today.
It's the Harvard versus Trump war. US President Donald Trump attacked Harvard University once again. In his social media post, he attacked the Ivy League University for employing former mayors of New York and Chicago to teach municipal management and government. He said, and I quote, "Harvard has been hiring almost all woke, radical left idiots and bird brains who are only capable of teaching failure to students and so-called future leaders." And that Harvard can no longer be considered even a decent place of learning and should not be considered on any list of the world's great universities or colleges. Harvard is a joke, teaches hate and stupidity, and should no longer receive federal funds. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's what was tweeted by President Donald Trump. Harvard University refuses to bow down to the President of the United States of America for the time being.
The US president is relentless in his attacks on Harvard University. The latest social media jibe comes in the wake of his threat to strip Harvard of its tax-exempt status on 15th April. Because on Monday, Harvard University rejected what it called unlawful demands to overhaul academic programs or lose federal grants.
First, when it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorns.
Beginning with Columbia University, the Trump administration has rebuked universities across the country over their handling of the pro-Palestinian student protest movement that roiled campuses last year. Following the 2023 Hamas-led attack inside Israel and the subsequent Israeli attacks on Gaza, students across different campuses protested, especially so in the Harvard University. Donald Trump has called the protests anti-American and anti-Semitic. He accused universities of peddling Marxism and radical left ideology. Through his presidential campaign and after assuming office, he promised to end federal grants and contracts to universities that do not agree to his administration's demands. Columbia, a private school in New York City, agreed to negotiations over demands to tighten its protest rules after the Trump administration said it had terminated mainly medical and scientific grants worth $400 million. But Harvard University did not buckle down. In an ex-post on Monday, Harvard University stated the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. White House had said that the policy changes were designed to combat anti-Semitism on the campus. Harvard University President Alan Garber, in a letter to Harvard community on Friday, had stated that the sweeping demands violated the university's First Amendment rights, exceeds the statutory limits of the government's authority under Title VI.
Everyone was looking to see who would be the first universities to stand up to the Trump administration, and I'm really, really heartened that it is Harvard, one of the nation's oldest institutions, certainly one of the most well endowed, with a lot of frankly political connections. I mean, this could be a game changer in terms of saving the sector.
Former US President Obama took to social media to applaud his alma mater, Harvard University, for rejecting Trump's demands, and he said this sets an example.
The Harvard University Office of the President is taking a very different stance. They're saying, look, we have taken very, very strong stances and positions to curb what you might perceive as being anti-Semitism on our campus. We do not think that what you're doing is lawful, and we will not allow the federal government to essentially decide what happens on university campuses.
A few of Harvard's peer institutions lent support on Tuesday to the school's stand against the Trump administration, including Princeton and Stanford University. Bureau Report, India Today.
My colleague and executive editor of India Today, Preeti Chaudhary, earlier spoke to Andrew Manuel Crespo, who is a professor of law at Harvard Law School. Listen in to what he had to say.
Your comments on the current conflict between President Trump and your university, where President Trump has practically called out Harvard for being woke, bird brains, or even using the word like idiot.
This is a dire moment, not just for my university, but for higher education all across our country, and really for our country itself. We are seeing an attack on the oldest university in the United States, and it is an attack that is trying to change the way that we teach, the way that we research, who we hire, and an attack on our academic freedom and on our independence. This is an attack on one of the central institutions of a constitutional democracy. Our president has been attacking our press, our courts, our legal profession, and now our universities. And I think it's very critical that these institutions stand up for each other, stand up for themselves, and insist on protecting their constitutional rights, including their freedom of speech and their right to teach.
But Professor, well, many would see it as a brave move, but how are you going to deal with the cuts in federal grants, in tax? Where is the money coming from? Understandably, yes, Harvard has this huge endowment. Even then, how are you going to deal with the cuts?
I am proud to see our faculty and our administration standing up. It is a scary time. There is no institution in the world that can just blink at losing $9 billion, which is what the Trump administration has threatened. At the same time, there is no university in the world that is more well-known and that is wealthier than Harvard. So I think it was incumbent on us to take this stand. I think we had a moral obligation to do it, but we can't do this by ourselves. We're going to need support from every other university in the country. We're going to need support from people who understand that this is a threat to democracy around the world. This is a critical moment and a critical test for institutions that are part of the lifeblood of democracy in countries that hold themselves out as democratically governed.
US President Donald Trump is undoubtedly the darling of social media. He talks or moves, and with that, he inspires endless memes. Here are a few viral ones of the day in our segment, Viral POTUS.
The US President Donald Trump's hilarious China joke on Vice President J.D. Vance's absence, saying, "Must have got a call," sparks laughter.
What the hell happened to JD? Because he was just here. He must have gotten a call from China.
El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele was in White House to meet the US President, and he impressed the man in the White House in a viral moment.
And we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we can do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, sometimes they say that we imprison thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So,
It's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes.
It's such a nice thing. We could sit down and have noodles together. I think it's very nice, right? You guys might want to try this vinegar. It's going to make you...
Following President Trump's 2025 tariff imposition on China, a Chinese man's impersonation of the POTUS has gone viral. The video posted on X depicts a humorous negotiation over vinegar and noodles, drawing parallels to the US tariff policy. While the impersonation is celebrated, some users note that the potential consequences of similar satire targeting Chinese President Xi Jinping, and he's trending for weeks now.
Not my problem. With my vinegar, your noodles are more tasty. Without my vinegar, your noodles are just plain.
But I think you want this, right?
I make my chili oil myself, in my home. I don't need your chili oil.
You want a soy sauce?
I only got my vinegar. This is the magical stuff, right?
Yes. Can I have a little bit more vinegar then?
You want some more?
Yeah, I want a little bit more.
You want some more, right?
You took so much of my noodles.
You probably need to give me another half of your noodles. I'll give you some vinegar, right?
No, I got barely any noodles left.
You can use intermittent fasting, intermittent fasting. That's a good thing,
Intermittent
right?
fasting.
The big craze in America these days is MAGA, or Make America Great Again, courtesy the US President Donald Trump. He keeps distributing these MAGA hats in red everywhere. But could these MAGA hats be made in China? Viral video reveals Trump's hypocrisy amid tariff war and meme fest erupts.
Well, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg faces a historic antitrust trial as he defends his purchase of Instagram against allegations of illegally monopolizing the social media market. Will this see $1.3 trillion business empire crumble and sell off Instagram? That time will only tell.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand in E. Barrett Prettyman United States Courthouse in Washington, D.C. as he defended his accusation of Instagram along with WhatsApp. The purchase is alleged to have illegally monopolized the social media market. Zuckerberg testified in a historic antitrust trial brought by the FTC, alleging that Meta snapped up rivals to preserve its monopoly. The case threatens company's $1.3 trillion business empire. The FTC is seeking to force Meta to restructure or sell Instagram and WhatsApp, testing President Donald Trump's promises to take on big tech firms. Meta has argued that its purchases of Instagram in 2012 and WhatsApp in 2014 have benefited users, and that Zuckerberg's past statements are no longer relevant amid competition from ByteDance's TikTok, Google's YouTube, and Apple's messaging app. If the FTC wins, then it has to prove that measures such as forcing Meta to sell Instagram or WhatsApp would restore competition. The trial, however, could stretch into July.
If the FTC prevails in this 8-week trial, what they're seeking is to break off WhatsApp and Instagram from Meta platforms. So Meta would only have basically its Facebook and AI business. This would be a huge blow for Meta because it's estimated that about 50% of its advertising revenue comes from Instagram.
According to Wall Street Journal report, in March, Mark Zuckerberg had reached out to head of the FTC to settle the case by offering to pay $450 million. As the trial neared, Zuckerberg reportedly upped the offer to $1 billion. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson dismissed Zuckerberg's offer, even though it was far more than the $30 billion that FTC had reportedly demanded.
Now, OpenAI isn't just chatting anymore. It might be launching its own social media platform. And if you're into AI art, there's now a handy image gallery inside ChatGPT to keep track of your creations. Cyrus with more.
It's like every day that we open the internet to search for something, we are getting updates about some AI tools and updates about ChatGPT, and exactly why I'm here to tell you what is new. with the AI platform. ChatGPT is now adding an image gallery to its platform. Basically, whatever AI images now that you create on ChatGPT will be categorically stored in the tabs area. So you can just go there and reference some of the older images that you made using AI. Now, how this helps? You will be able to keep a track of whatever you made using this AI tool. And I think it's a great idea because most of the devices and platforms that have image creators need to have a categorically based image gallery for sorting and also going referencing. So I think good move by OpenAI to release a gallery for the ChatGPT platform. Now, the second bit about this news is that OpenAI is looking and exploring to create its own social media platform. Now, this is a report that was there in The Verge where it was said that Sam Altman is exploring an idea to compete with his rival Elon Musk and create a platform like X where people will be able to post AI generated images and also a lot of the commentary they would be able to put there. So this is a space that Sam didn't explore earlier, but now he is. What do you think? Is this the right move? We know OpenAI for its AI prowess, but now he's switching to social media. Whether it's the right move or not, you can let us know. But I think this could be interesting for the entire social media landscape. That's it for me, but remember, I will be here coming to you with more AI updates on a daily basis because AI, it's developing each and every day. So I'll be back.
That's all on this edition of World Today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and take care.